As I said in a previous video there, I don't like sitting about at night doing nothing. I tend to get bored. I don't watch TV a lot, so I nipped down to the boat here because, as you can see, this floor has seen quite a bit of wear over the years, and it could be doing with a paint. So rather than sitting watching mind-numbing TV, I thought I'd just nip down and give the floor a paint and these steps. And then if I get a chance, I'll get out here in the cockpit. I'll get that painted and sealed up. It's going to need obviously that's going to need a good clean, and it's going to need a sand down first, so I'll get that done, and then who knows, I might even get these seats done as well. Anyway, I'll sweep this up and I'll tidy it all. I can't really use the hoover because it's early night time rather than evening, so I'll give it a sweep up and then I'll give it a sand and we'll see how it goes from there. I've got some of the International grey deck paint, you know, the grippy stuff with the medium in it, so I'm going to paint it with that, because we're going to do everything else with Kiwi grip this year. But as I said, I'll get this cleaned up and then I'll give it a quick sand down just to help the paint key to it, and we'll come back in and see how it's looking once I've got that done. Now I've got this sanded down and I've got it washed and degreased, and I've got the floor pump taken out just now, just so that I don't have to paint round about it, because I'm not the best painter in the world, so the less obstacles the better, I think. Anyway, I'll get this painted and we'll come back in and see what it's looking like. Now, I wouldn't class myself as a good painter, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll tell you what a difference just a quick lick of paint does. I was actually going to leave the step here, I was going to leave that dark just to make a distinction, but I think I'm actually going to paint that and then maybe paint it a different colour after it, just to seal it up and make sure it's good and waterproof. Obviously as I said, the pumps are out here. There's two pumps, 2 foot pumps there, they're out just now, but even a quick lick of paint really cheers an area up, and as I said, you know, it'll make it good and waterproof, and it's the International grip paint, which is really good quality, so it'll last for the year, and it'll be non-skid, so even when we're getting thrown up and down, it'll still be, there'll be plenty of grip there, even if it does happen to get wet somehow. So I'm happy at that, and I'm going to continue with the steps and with the cockpit. Now I'm just putting some masking tape over these grips. Obviously I'll put another bit in here, and then I'm just going to cut round about them, because I don't want them being grey the same, because they're plastic and I don't know if the paint will adhere to the plastic the same as it will to the wood. So as I said, I'll cover this and then I'll cut round about them, and I'll bring you back in to have a look. I was originally thinking about redoing these steps and just making them more like a ladder, because they do take up quite a bit of space when you go down into the saloon and the galley, but they're actually quite handy because there's storage space in them as well, and I think they were probably the original ones that came with the boat. So I think I'm just going to give them a sand and then paint them with the grip paint just to seal them up and freshen them up a bit. Aye, I think that's what I'll do. I'll give them a freshen up with some paint and I'll come back in.
Well, hopefully we're going to see a catamaran today. I'm just making the journey up to Ullapool, where there's going to be a catamaran there that we can have a look at, I hope. But even if it doesn't work out, it's not a hardship. I mean, the view on the way up is just unbelievable.
These here are wild goats. They're actually protected in this area, and they've been protected, from what I understand, since Robert the Bruce. I think it was Robert the Bruce that originally decreed that these goats be protected. So we just get them randomly walking up and down the road at times. Because of their dark colour, you've got to be really careful driving this road at night, because there can be herds of 30 to 40 of them that just appear out of nowhere. I've even seen them jumping down off of small cliffs onto the road at night. So, I mean, they're beautiful and things, but they're a little bit crazy. And they're certainly no tame, so it's not a good idea to try and approach them, because I imagine if you got head-butted with that, it's going to sting a bit. Well, I came up here today to Ullapool, to this new marina that they've built over the last year, because I had a tip-off of an old catamaran. Unfortunately, it was a powerboat version one, and it wasn't a sailing one. As you can see, the weather's lovely Scottish weather. It's absolutely freezing. But we'll have a look round about and just see this whole new marina with all the boats on it. Now, unfortunately, as I said, the catamaran that we were coming to look at turned out to be a powerboat, and it's not something that we're wanting for the project. We want it to be a sailboat catamaran. But anyway, we'll have a look right in the marina here and talk you through what we see. And of course, as soon as I get the camera out, the wind starts. But all this was just built last year. Before then, it was just on this side with some fishing boats. So this whole thing's been built. And I've got to say, it's looking fantastic. And we've got a few sailboats over here. We'll nip over and have a look if we can. I've been a bit cheeky and I've parked in the harbour where it says permit holders only, so I can't stay too long. As I said, this is a new marina that the Highland Council created over the last year. It caters mostly to local boat owners in Ullapool, but there are now 6 visitor berths here that never used to be here. So it's really good for, you know, if you're sailing up the west coast of Scotland and things. That's another 6 visitor berths that have been created in the last year that didn't used to be here.
Oh wow, she's beautiful. It's almost like an old caracal. It's lovely. It's got the wooden mast and everything. All the rope rigging. It might be slightly uncomfortable out in the Minch on a day that's a bit stormy, but she's absolutely gorgeous. The old bronze winch handle and everything on her. This boat here also comes down to Gairloch. They do a lot of diving, and they'll sink the swing moorings and things like that and repair chains. So this is a boat that I'm used to seeing. But there's now, I don't know if you can see in the background there, the blue mooring buoys there. That's the visitor moorings that have been put in over the last year. It's a beautiful part of the country for to moor up. Spend a few days exploring the hills. I love this wee tender here. It looks as if it's been hand built. It's beautiful. Wow. Well, that's me finally managed to get her started. I took the best part of a day trying to figure out what was going wrong after I reinstated the fuel tanks, and I managed to flatten 2 starter batteries and 2 leisure batteries before I realised the T-piece that comes in from the fuel tanks was actually drawing just a little bit of air, and it was enough to stop the pressure building up and the fuel getting squirted into the injectors. So I managed to get that sorted last night, and thankfully she's ticking over quite happy just now. But we're going to take her back over to the mooring today because it's the start of the tourist season here, and we want to leave this berth open for visitors. So I'll get some film of us going over. It's a pretty nice day. I think the wind's at about 10 knots just now, but other than that we're doing pretty well. So I'll video us going over there, and I'll come back in once we're moored up on the other side. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a lot less smoky now. Now that I've got it onto the actual diesel tanks, and it's not just taken out of a small jerry can. So hopefully that sorts the problem. I've put a new fuel filter on it as well. I've also put some diesel treatment through it, which will hopefully clean out the engine as well. But she seems to be idling and throttling up a lot easier today, so I'm happy at that. You can see with the marks on the rocks that the tide's actually quite low just now. So we're in between low tide and high tide, but still there's 2 to 3 metres lower here than there usually is. The tide usually goes right up to the top of that black line. I think at the highest we actually get 5 metre tides here, so it's quite a significant drop.
This point here is actually quite crazy. We're only about maybe 15 metres offshore, but we're still at 26, 25 metres of depth. So the hill goes right down, and this is usually a really good spot for fish, but it seems to be empty today. Maybe the seals have been round fishing, because there's a round at the moor and there's quite a big population of fish. There is just one rock in there, just under the water, and at low tide it's only about a metre below, so you've got to watch for the bubbles on the surface. You can actually see it on the fish finder there. It just, as I said, it's at low tide, it's just about 1 metre under the surface, and there's been a few people over the year fell foul of it and actually hold their hull. So you've got to be quite careful. It's quite grey today, but I think there's high UV because I can feel the heat on my skin. This area here, although I mean I could literally throw a rope to the shore there, we're at 25 metres depth nearly, and this is usually quite a good area for fish as well. It doesn't look very far offshore, and it's only actually about 30 metres away, but the depth goes down significantly quite fast, and I don't know if you can see all those small marks around about 5 metres. That's all shoals of fish, things like mackerel and things. So it's quite a biodiverse area, and it's great if you're a fisherman. I'm actually looking for a spot just over here in a bit. It goes down to about 30 metres and then comes right back up to about 5, and there's usually a lot of pollock and coley and things like that there, so I'm going to have a wee look once we get down past. Even although we're in the loch just now and the wind's only about 10 knots, as I said, because of the direction of the current, it's actually quite rocky on board. I don't know if you can see it properly, but what I was talking about with the tide levels in this area, if you see the small boat that's further up the bank in there, that's usually floating on a high tide. So I mean the tides can be quite significant, so you've got to really watch, or you can end up with your boat on the bottom quite easily, or in this case you can end up with your tender high and dry and have to carry it down to the water, because as I said, the tides can, at their highest, I think with the spring tides, I think it's about 5 metres, 5.5 metres, and then with the neap tides it can be a lot lower. Now, excuse me squinting and looking grumpy. It's just we have actually got some sunshine and my eyes aren't used to that. So, but I wanted to talk to you about a few messages that I've had. Now, these weren't the guys trying to troll me or anything like that. They were actually constructive criticism, which I'm happy to take. And it was talking about the catamaran project, and one of the guys mentioned that, you know, sellers might feel a bit disrespected that I'm offering such a low amount for a catamaran that
they probably love as much as I love my boat. So it got me thinking. And then there was another person that said, well, if Spirit is too small for you and you can't use the toilet and things like that, would it not be better just to sell her to help fund another catamaran? So what do you guys think? Do you think I should try and sell Spirit as a working project and then put that money towards a catamaran and put a bit more of my own money towards a catamaran? Do you think it would be more respectful? Because I'm not looking to upset anybody, and I'm certainly not looking to rip anybody off. The idea I had was get one that had been lying 20 years and wasn't being used, and bring it back to life. Aye, I'm certainly not looking to upset anybody. And you know, the message was correct. If Spirit isn't quite what I'm needing and I can't get into the heads to use the toilet, then is it an idea just to sell her as a working project? I mean, she's a beautiful boat. She's got lots and lots of stuff. She's got extra sails and things with her and all the rest of it, you know. The engine works. So it's not as if she's a bare bones project. But aye, take the money from her and get a few grand towards a catamaran. I think it would certainly make it easier. It would make it easier to find one, or to find somebody willing to sell me one. Aye, what do you guys think? I think the engines beat the life at me as it is. This here was me trying to get down to look to find out where the air leak was with the fuel system, and I looked up and I actually got one of the bolts on the nose, so she's took a pound of flesh already. But aye, as I said, I'm not looking to disrespect anybody. I'm looking to have an adventure. I'm looking to have a calm life, you know. And I'm looking to take you guys along on the adventure as well, so your opinion matters, you know. I think the going and finding a catamaran and getting her going again and then sailing her up the coast would be a really good series, and would bring some entertainment value for you guys and ladies. Guys is just an affectionate term. But aye, I think the catamaran would be a really good project, and I would certainly enjoy it. And if it means, you know, that I've got to sell Spirit to help fund it, then so be it. As I said, an extra few grand might make the difference between getting a catamaran and not getting a catamaran. So let me know what you think.